start with the questions and answers, since we have organized the questions into the Lamas' names. And we have 33 questions. We don't know if we can. Yeah, we will try to finish, and if we can't, then we will finish them another time. Let's do our best. So the first question is for Gabe Lama. If there is nothing but our mind, how can a Buddha see samsara? He has to create it in his own mind because samsara does not exist. So what is enlightenment then? People say the Buddhas see our dual level, the Dharmakaya, but he can't, because if he sees suffering minds, he cannot be enlightened. nga sangye ina tini chama nga thanan yore tini nga nyangyen dewa thong yore ba nga semchen ina tini nga khorba ma ta thong yo ma ra tini nga sangye thanga men do nga semchen ra ba tini sangye cha ra ba tini sangye siati tini khorba thong thup ke men do kain se na khong sangye cha ra ba khong khorba thong thup na tini khong sangye ma ra ba ti khane ra ina
sangye tamjen ji ma la yo ra ta te ta te konzo dang do na ni ke tani 하고고 요래 마도 가시게 야동반이 리조드는 강양 매조제라 고알리근도 와 근데 말은 타도고 동나다 니스지도 요 말에서 그 요때 나중 오갈라 다 차대 요와 된데 대 요바스 값도 요바나 이만지 주냐면서는 요바나 있으면 인고 요래 동당 때문에 단데 다음에 봐 Nima 이시 된저지 리데 산제 그 매생도 말이야. 주탐데 내당 진이 여러. 선진은 내가 간다 연구 요바. 된 친구 여러 산제 자자들이 소제마도 만도 차는 말이야. 담진 진바스 하장 협진차 친구
여러. So it's not that the Buddha does not see samsara, because the Buddha possesses omniscience, so the omniscient mind. And so we need to understand this from the relative and from the ultimate perspective. And so sometimes some people, when they speak about emptiness, then maybe they understand it to be like nothingness, but that's not what it is. What it is that ultimately it's not that there is nothing, but there is a non-duality and there's an inseparability. From our perspective, we seem separate because there is a self. So it seems like everything really exists. And then it is from that perspective first that we practice the Dharma. But ultimately, when one attains enlightenment, what is realized is a non-duality between self and others. So that implies that it's not that the Buddha doesn't see that. In fact, he sees everything. He knows the nature of all phenomena, and he knows the states of all the sentient beings because he is enlightened. So being a Buddha does not mean that one's kind of vision or perception becomes just one-sided, that one just sees one thing only. That's why we call the Buddha omniscient, all-knowing, because he knows everything. And the Buddha sees even the most subtle working of karma, the most slightest obscurations, and he sees it as it is. And so it's definitely not the case that the Buddha does not see it. So then that's for any Lama then. Then could you please show and explain the hand mudras for the offerings? The Sakya offerings. Do we have Gabe Lama right on the screen so he can show? So this is Argam.
주주 만다와 가시도 사실은 곰파 만다와 때는 대해서 제발 용되게 다 찍던 데가 인 노스는 주주 말에
Not these are not the mudras for the 7 offerings, and they are not always the same. So sometimes they are different in different lineages, and even within one lineage, they are different. For example, in different monasteries. So it's not just one way to do it, and therefore we can't say if you do it a different way that it's wrong. So there's different ways of doing it. So the first one here is argam, which is the water to drink. Then padem, the water to wash the feet. Upe, the flowers. Then dupe, you kind of roll like that, which is the incense. And aloke, the lamp. Gende, the perfume. Nevedya, the food. So for Nevedya, we make a mudra, a gesture of kind of offering up food. Some actually raise their finger to represent like a kind of Shalse Dorma, and others just have their fingers more like this. And then Shabda is the music, which is the drum, playing the drum. Drupon. There's, I guess, 3 questions. Okay. Could you please explain the 9 moods of dance? Are these visualized as postures of the deity's legs? Are they related to the Lama dancing tradition at Tibetan monasteries? The Nyamgo ra, Kargi Nyamgo, Kargi Nyamgo the this tradition on they need the Nyamsia the Ravam Kare Shap Ginyamre, Kare Shal Ginyamre, Karen Yamra, Bena Chaptang Davon Dinavon Yamreve, they need Cham Davon Deva, Bena Gompala Cham Chapi or Vatelan Deva Yorve. And Tobota din Yamsia the Karen Yam, Shap Ginyam, Gambanyam, Lapanyam.
Gaiba Namba Bawan J Stroma, that's what is on the group in Hamzor.
But this Nashi or Gag Yam Bawa Chipa
Gaiba Namba Baba's on the Green Yamzon. This is Zone Yamzor, good to eat number. Good Yamzon, Jitan Song Yamzon, Tok Yamzon, Jitan Yamsen, Horan, mix it Chichunda, you said, Karukiam, good and a good day. That bitch on the Shimo, the Gambara, Shimo, and the Yoruba Shimo, Tronsom Dandy, the Koran this Manda, the Chua, the good Tina Koran Yam, don't answer you, Sarva. Koran Yam, Towing out there is zone in a zone, some Jackie Chimbo, the job mixing the Yuba. What to do? It's on Yams in the corner. You said
it. Yeah. So there are 3 of the bodies. So these are charming, bravery, and pleasant. And then 3 of the speech, savage, laughter, and fearsome. And 3 of the mind, compassionate, awesome, and peaceful. And so in terms of like what it is now, is it a posture of the legs and so on? That's not so certain. It's the general expression. So it's not only the legs, it's also their facial expression. For example, is it slightly wrathful or smiling? It's a whole kind of conveying of a certain mood, a certain feeling. So sometimes they let out a loud cry, for example, a noise, or a kind of a unique kind of expression and a unique noise coming like through their speech and so on. But it's not just like the legs. It's just a general expression. So the three moods of the mind is compassionate, awesome, and peaceful. And so, especially compassionate and peaceful, they also are moods of the wrathful deities, because even though on the outer level they appear fierce or wrathful, within their minds they have great compassion and peace. Lama, in the Tsewang Tsimba sadhana, it specifically mentions at the beginning a certain way of dharma offering. Is it required, and can it be done mentally? Also, does this sadhana belong to the Anuttara Yoga Tantra level, and can I integrate it with other Dzogchen practice? Di yinchi minchi chogo reves yana sadhap na mikpa komna chogo reves teni kambotere teni nipa ne di lama ki gyures reves teni kung Dzogchen yamlan setu teni Dzogchen yamlan seba kapla tevan tema tropta nyamdo kanla kore Dzogchen non je chogo reve kambote tera tonmate
ta musu ngaran tap de onda wasona Toma Manchuna, go yorba. Ante Naransola, Zonzin that Namdo Mambo, Yosan Sadu, Delatin Baka, Manchu, Samdup. Then it go the Mogo to Tawan to Millerale. When I done a get down to Mondo, Jena, the Rek, that Driba, then Angani go to Asta and Chimaka Jando, Chayore. Garsi da madena yik trupa yik mupa zamsena chakde malo yana rindra yosari. Teni Dzogchen and sina ta Dzogchen la be level mamboriwa mahayo anayo atayo azon. Dzogchen atayo the tatati garsi gorin simi zoram riwa. Delanen la gomjur ngada jur kanya yo mare. 다 Dzogchen 제바 마하요아세나 다 Dzogchen 공도 리스나 저거요. 제람다 롱안요와 되다 다다티 저완지마고 조롱 거대 양제 나가 자캄다 롱로솔라티네 냠슬린다요 대탐제 Dzogchen 롱안요 공론로요.
니 람메기 규응어서 네 송기여서 말아봐. 람메기 규 람메기 리베스
Lami Juriba.
Lama Juri.
Really?
So regarding the Dharma offering, so if it is if it is possible to make a Dharma offering, then you should make a Dharma offering. It should be made, and so it's because as ordinary beings we have a lot of thoughts in the mind of subject and object, dualistic thoughts. But so whether or not it is necessary also depends on the level of one's view, realization, whether it's higher or lower. Actually, if one's view is a high view, then even these kind of mental elaborations can also become a cause for bondage, actually. But so generally speaking, and we make a Dharma offering, but it also should be okay if you really have an awareness and really bring it to mind. And regarding the level of the Anuttara Yoga, it is Anuttara Yoga, belongs to the unsurpassed highest Yoga Tantra. In terms of the Dzogchen practice, there are different levels of Dzogchen practice. There's the Maha Yoga, Ano Yoga, and Ati Yoga. And if you're practicing the Ati Yoga, then in that context you practice the completion stage that is without characteristics. And that means that during the Ati Yoga practice there is no mantra recitation and no visualization of a deity at all. And then if you practice Dzogchen from the Maha Yoga perspective, then so then so then you can it can actually, this practice can be applied in the Maha-yoga practice, and not then during the completion stage of the Tsevan Tsimpa also, that is connected to the Anu Yoga, which is related to the channels and the subtle elements and the wind movements through the channels. So then that also would belong to the Anu Yoga Dzogchen section. Khenpo Samdup. When doing the Khenpo Samdup, it's your turn. When doing Vajrasattva practice, I've been told to focus on things I regret, bad actions and thoughts. There is no shortage of these. But I wonder, how can I use Vajrasattva practice to address negative things that I can't remember, like mental habits, things from childhood, past lives, etc. Teni dorsam nyamnan kapla yora tene khanda sego yore teni tan dorsam khanda nyamnan sego re ti den ma
ta tende ri do de nga zo de da de kwa ro chi sa yawa yin yo de kwa de ke din de wa de sam no tang tene tin na yin che ge ta kan da che wa thoma me ba ne da da la thog par de tene da ra ni chi ta ko Tremba Dipaya Yore Madema Wata Parchi the Train to Yomaro. Tata Tremba Te Najitin, Himatsa Yawa Teda Tamchi, any Tata Dom Sem Gom Data, Yamling Tonitin, and Shaggy and Sanyata Mayor to Zonjan and Deki Ujere.
So when we confess our negative actions, then we have an awareness thinking I have done wrong. So you just basically keep that in mind. But of course we have done wrong since beginningless time until now, and there are many things that we cannot remember. Some things we can remember, but most things we cannot remember. So you just bring to mind that all of these things that I can and cannot remember that I have committed in the past until now, I confess them all when you practice Vajrasattva. Khenpo Tenzin. Regarding the eating of meat, I have to eat meat for health reasons. I would prefer to be a vegetarian, but this is not an option for me. What can I do to reduce the karmic impact of eating meat daily? I do Vajrasattva practice and wondered if I should include my regret at eating meat in the practice. I also do not feel as much compassion for the animals whose meat I eat compared to wildlife and pets. How can I address this? Laying about the Nungro Tanga Tapshi Kara Yores, Tini Penacong, Dorsen Yamlen Sedu, Tini Tikabla Onga Shasa, Gusam Champo Gigitos, Tina was some Gorves, Tini Antirim, Titan Shasa, Semchin Dirva, the Laning Chishira Gigam and Dog, Yina Yang, Penasilla La Shawa, Davotona Yana, Sosa Kichida, or about the La Big Ninja Gigitog. That ends a Samata, Karachi Goris.
Choose the two similar led Yoruba. They cut some Rumboche Sonso. Around to Ha Sadu Capsu Taji Pulunlin Chat Sitite. Namjunga to Sordan and Dogo Pulunlin Chat so turn Corchos in Monajaka Yore. That data was Sim Chimpochi Matapaina Yang. Taji Susu Zupola yo besim Japtamamba Yore. To sol Piachi to Sakayo Samna, true things the Paloka adjourned. Tene chuna tamji jin ri de lun dunba zele ne de yo zang. Tene dunba de pa ka jor dra je na yang dikba de des hyuk chung yo re. Tene ninje machi pachi par si ba ke tablan lam be go yo re. So so rang la pe li ne che ta na kap jik zo na yang zu bo khala. Tene na cha kan nan do si. Ta dra wi ne des ninje a zan dong ji Thubten ya bo yo re. Tene ta dikba hya bu kap so ta simjin de korang ji bo sem na dream ma ta ba yin na yang. Tene ta je nga ta wo ke ta hya ta sang khi mang bo yo re si. Ta de chama ke ta hya su bi dikba ni ba de tene ta hyo sa ne ta kulong ta na ga to ne zo ji ja ne sa na tene ta hya su ne ya bo re da la ya yo mar de kan tar tene ninje mi ba tene nga thutin ji bo yin sam na tene ang ko de chang ke piyung mi ba khala dikba hyuk chim bo yo re ta hi nge gang na lam do ya te ta du ba tin sa thom na tene thutin la yang phi tene dikba ya ma sap yang ge wa yang drop ta ba tene ta tam pi chu ko to ne kep sang ro ta na len ya yo re hirap pe chu ta wa ina.
So that Dharma practice, it mainly depends on our motivation, on our intention. Yesterday, Rinpoche, the other day, he also mentioned, he talked about eating meat, and he said that the meat that we eat, we share this karmic connection of being each other's karmic creditor. So it's like a karmic debt. And so sometimes also, for example, when we practice the sur smoke offering, then we are also inviting in all of the karmic creditors. And so then for that, one needs kind of a strength of mind. And then also now in general in our body, there are many billions of different life forms of microorganisms. And when you eat, also it benefits them, whatever you eat. And so, of course, you have your health on the one hand, but you kind of should maybe separate a bit from just thinking about your health, because it is said that everything, all phenomena depend on causes and conditions, and therefore the motivation is really actually crucial. And therefore, if you kind of can change your motivation a bit, then also the negativity, the negative karma will be much lesser. And if you feel no compassion for certain animals, then you should make an effort in cultivating compassion. And you can do that, for example, by taking your own body, yourself as an example. For example, if you would prick yourself with a needle, even that, how much does that hurt you? And so these are ways to cultivate compassion, just taking yourself as an example. And then when you confess the negative actions, and then even if you're not able to bring to mind all the sentient beings, or only other sentient beings, you can also think that there are many people like myself who are eating meat, and may all their negative karma of eating meat become purified. So you can change your motivation, your state of mind in that way. And of course, one cannot say that eating meat is a good thing, but at least you should not just do it for your own health and without any compassion, because then the negative karma would be much greater. So therefore, if you're able to change your way of thinking about it, your motivation about it, then that will also maybe be good for your health, and there will be a less negative karma, and also a way to practice virtue. And you will receive the benefits of Dharma practice. So for that, you can change your motivation if you use your wisdom, your awareness. Then, Gape Lama, my first Buddhist teacher, was not in a Tibetan Buddhist tradition. There was something powerful and wonderful about being around him that I have heard is called blessing energy. In combination with my meditation practice, it opened my heart, and helped me. Later, it was revealed that, like many others in his position, he had been involved in secretive sexual activities that resulted in great harm to some of the women involved, and the Sangha never really recovered. I was not personally affected and had already left the Sangha for other reasons when the news came out. Question is, to create this blessing field, the teacher must have cultivated vast bodhicitta. If so, that seems to be at odds with the willingness to cause such harm to his students. Could this be a blind spot created by a karmic ripening, even in such a developed being? How do I understand this seeming paradox? This is generating confusion in my understanding of the path, karma, and bodhicitta. Thank you.
하고디 대 지랑 원이지 원에 다네가 제 지랑 선나 핀도 보소나 되니 대가 받는데 내가 여러 봐 뭐 인가 가르라고도 따고 말어 봐 잠잠이 제 메시지 대가 나서 자세라는 송 여러 종이 방고리시 종이 발라티는 저 담보 개월로지 요바데 텍스는 매바 차와 같은 그 진실도 시그리스 가르에는 메나테 nga랑 라지 다다제 가르세고라체 세나나 네게티비티 마용 탑세고레 세나나 네게티비티 다 나서 세나 파사고야 그 조테레바 데니체 콜라요 다다 종요 다메 문에다네 다제 힘주 nga랑 라핑간도나 데니 다제 힘주 타심바신도 고야 요 말와 고 딱제신 좀 데 벤나데 고르는 버친다와라나 너무 망보는 들어와서 해요다. 데 간데 하고 말해. 저랑 원님의 비행단에 되니 핀사던데 되게 안 좋요라. 네. 네. 들려. 네.
And so, really, mainly, you have to see if that the being with this teacher benefits you or not. And if you really find that it really benefits you, then that seems to be fine. Then you don't really have to follow so much what other people say, because in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says that we have to abandon negative companions. And so what this negative companion is that there are those who create conditions for our mind to become negative. So if our mind becomes negative and more afflicted, then that's a negative companion, whoever and in whichever way that happens. And so basically what you need to look at is at your own mind, not so much what others say, but really how does something affect your mind and what you need to try to do in your practice is, and that's what all practice is about, is to remove the negativity from the mind, to clear away the causes of negativity. And it has not so much to do with analyzing whether he really has exactly that fault or not, but in terms of from a perspective of your practice, you see, has it benefited me or not? You don't have to kind of reach the kind of furthest limits of analysis. For example, Guru Rinpoche, he actually had a lot of women, and however, we don't really, when we can see, we don't really know like what really the purpose was behind it. But many benefited from him. So if it really benefits, if it brings benefit to practice, then it is fine to stay with that teacher. Then any Lama. My biggest doubt regarding Garchen Rinpoche being fully enlightened is from his own words, like when he says that he's a very sinful being or that he makes mistakes. So I see Rinpoche as a highly realized bodhisattva, but in my dualistic mind, this is different from him being perfectly enlightened. How should I understand this? Diramtim Garchen Rinpoche, Tetsom Jigdok, Deni Kung Nuna Sangyeda Magedi Kola Tetsom Desto Kainsana Rinpoche Kongri Kisongdok, Nape Tikpa Chempo Yos, Deni Nape Notre Mambo Segios, Deni ngarang kinguna tini Rinpoche nguna tokpa thombo gi changjo sempare samgiyo yina yang ngarang ninjing gi tokpa yoraba yina ngarang ninjing gi semgi nguna tala keba tej tok di changjo sempa tang sangye nguna sangye sabati gi keba yosare samgiyo teni khareres khanda ha khogore kiran so yana
ngare 가르치도 뭐지 라 도반도 라로 산제 임발
장접 샘플이면 더 봐요 말아
로와
이나 양카이스 노는 뭐 공을 그냥 송도 간 것도 그냥 하고 나티빠 좀 송도
로와
데네 데베 직전아 장접 샘플
인사 말해서 오늘
직전에 양 상게 말아
오래 레다데 가르친다 롬보체 그 송야 때 기체시 등 알아 솔라 렘데 송을 송고 요렇게 제시돼. 고래 그 오네 가르친다 산조섬 줄리제 대와 따와 또바 대다 탐제다 줄리제 대와 가서 진대 망보시대로와. 대네 드르르데 예나야 다다다 나랑 그 렘데 송고야 대기치도 송되게 요래때 고래 그 저도 뭐라 대네 대밤게 와라 가르친다 또 드롭네 대네 대그 강한 체네 다 마음발nga nyawal longre tende ki tikpatla ti ngal maung pala chi cha yungre sa ya tende ki jiktan thanang khong yo mare te de so ko nam to le phatin de chalre te yena ya da da cha sang de ngarang chol cher lemde song go ya ti chi de song de ge yo res
so most importantly, the reason why Garchen Rinpoche is also saying those things is he's saying that for us to follow the law of karma, cause and effect, for us to keep karma. And so we all know that he has cultivated, he has bodhicitta and realized the nature of the mind. But he's saying those things, however, for our sake, so that to remind us of karma, and so that we actually keep to karma, we observe karma. From his own perspective, it's not the case that he really is so sinful and has done so many terrible things that he might be afraid that in the future I surely will go to hell because of all the sins I have committed. So he doesn't have that kind of fear, that's for sure. But he's saying these things from the past and so on to remind us to follow the law of karma. Yeah. Then Lama. At the end of the Tsebang Tsimpa sadhana, the colophon says to practice according to the medium-length sadhana from the northern treasures. I assume this refers to Guru Dorje Dakpotsal. So far, the only difference is in the color of the Guru and the manner of repeating the Hong. Can you explain any more about the connection between these practices, if any?
Deriva tata Tsewan Zimba Koran Teriyong Kanana Ben Dordupa Mato Yomare. Je nga lobo kapsu Mekvasi Tanda Mato de Yomare. Teniti Koran Teriyong Nantan Karis Labio Zena Leyon Tane Labda Mali yours. Leyon Sin and Chupa Kortan, Tuba Kortan, the Sote Ti Tamboka Eric Ternan Yomare. In Guru Labdama said to Santer Tudrup Santer Tudrup la gendering do some yore, Lebzang Jepa, Jumbo Duba some yore. Then do Labdama said to Lebzang Dubateri. Dubateri, then do Chupa Tan, Tuba Tan, Ti Cortaso, Chatsante ti Labdama Kanana Yopa Na Yisi Gorez and Kasi yore. The Labdama the Somnian Gurum Bochi, Tada Somnian Gurum Bochiriva. Then the Tina then the young Chatsan Yomari, Tambook the young Tenana. Labdama de La Cario. Jeremy Gortek and Labdama de La Hong Diat and so young Yomari. In a young the Chipari is a initial land you on your Sander took them to Bozera.
So the actual Dharma scripture, the Dharma text of the Tsewan Tsimpa is very short. And all there really is the short mantra recitation and visualization and nothing else. So the Dharma scripture is, the text is extremely short. And so then there is so what is that in the colophon, in the small print in the end, is that there is a text from the northern treasures, and it is the medium length text of the Ladrama, and that includes like more levels of praise and offerings and so forth. So because the original text is extremely short, so again, for the Northern Treasure mind accomplishments, there is a longer, medium length, and shorter version. And so the Ladrama is a medium length version, right? And so what the colophon is saying is that what should be practiced according to the medium length Ladrama is the ritualistic aspect of the practice, things like making offerings and praise and so on. So one should follow the Ladrma when it comes to those practices. But then the actual text now was composed by Guru Rinpoche, and all of that is not included in the concise Dharma scripture. That's why it mentions here. It should, because it's not in there, it should be practiced according to the Ladrma. And in the Ladrma, the actual deity that is being practiced is a different deity, and also it's a different way of practicing the mantra. It's not the same as the Hong here. So the reason for mentioning that is just that the certain aspects of the practice need to be practiced according to the Ladrma, but it's still a different deity and so on.
Rinchen chudak ta le yong de labdam nan te ne te te kan do de de na yi se de de tsikye se ne yang jar nan dong jik pa yin ba la tsikye de sa wa de chudak de ro.
And so how this particular sadhana came about is that it was arranged by the Vidyadhara Chudak, Dharmakirti. And so he basically consulted the Hladharma. He looked at the Hladharma, and then according to the Hladharma, he then wrote the verses. He put that into verse form for the Tsewang Tsimpa sadhana. But the verses may be different, but the inner meaning then still is the same. Then any Lama. Is the Vajra held by the deity in the Tsewang Tsimpa practice a 5 or a 9-pointed Vajra? The Tsewang Tsimpa hla song the Dorje song yorwa hay tsengare yana tsegore. It's a 9-pointed Vajra. It says Khenpo Samdup or Lama. I heard that the short form of Tsewang Tsimpa practice is done at Garchen daily. Could you tell a little about it, please? Tsewang Tsimpa Dubadi, Nima Daba Garchen Monastery, Dongi Yorwa, Deni Dikola Tisa.
Namju Nyan Tapa Soka Cheni Marwa, Somala, Chupan Bayato So Cheni Mare. Then the Tini so ma nyamles bhut ni yadan kanrong ji nyamles go yore. Yadan ke chezogol ngajanda wala. Then tani pa somalan chenjor se go yorwa. Yadan nyamles becomes inje mi mario. Soma chenjor se becomes tambo inje mi nga yadan sa go yore. Garchen ta pe Wanchatan Thubten Yopa in a Magan of Tan and Yinger at the end of Rinchen. There was an Randada Gatang to Marva. Tea to know the thing as a Tambonium, the Twans, but the Enyam, the Injoktan, this or got down to the sea.
How the practice is done in Garm Monastery. So every day at Garm Monastery, we have to recite the protector offering practice, the Sorka. And so before one can start with the Sorka, the protector practice, one has to visualize oneself as any deity in general. So basically, one has to give a command to the protectors from within a state of confidence or divine pride of being the deity. So before we can give a command to the protectors, therefore, we must first visualize ourselves as the Yidam deity, and only then do we really have the authority to actually command them, instruct them to engage in activities. So if we would be kind of a similar status, then I wouldn't have the authority of giving them a command. And so that's why in the beginning, before the Sorka, we must practice a Yidam. And so at Garm Monastery, we practice the Tsewang Tsimpa sadhana before practicing the protector, the Sorka offering. Then Khenpo Samdup or Khenpo Tenzin. I am inspired to practice and study Dharma, and I have taken refuge online. I received my Dharma name and various things from GBI, and I am deeply grateful. As a beginner, I do not know where to go from here. I only have some academic knowledge of Buddhism. Of the various books on YouTube videos available, what should I look at to build a foundation of practice and knowledge? Sarpasagyandaре, Tininga Chun Yamnesiabe Tonan Chembuyus, Tinga di Tacha Gunanga Captum Shubayins, Tini GBI Konsongala Chugming Sendi Tangsong, Tini Sarpasagyanrim, Tini Takarachi or Shira Hakogumendok, Tini Chitang in Nangchi Kola Tate Lopchong Chinyong, Tini Tap Kasheta, Tini YouTube the video Kashiavatela Tain, Tini ta Una Nyamlen Tang Shiun. Is a mangshi tabo zogona teni karachi goris.
Oh yeah. That Richi Tambo Jamro Domba Shetene, Chi Manji told this Lob Jones, some notice of Emerson Yaboredo. Te in the Lob Jones here, the Tata de Cocabiabodo. Garchen also the Chisoka, Tajak unit, Tabar, Lama Nabak, Chin, Chetis, Yoro. And the new that is monks and young Yonan to Yan Basun Sena. Any Garchen, Chi, the monks, Tuba Sewa Yena, the other Chig Nenga the Hakoal Pento Yoroa. And then the Chi the Hako at Latin in Yamlin Sewa Yena, and take a Pentochia Young Yore. Also the Jinde Sung Yore, Tuba Gogres, Tambo. Then it Tuba Yoga Kanza take any days patches the Samba Gomba Sewa Yena. Take a Nenga Rochi Yachin Tony, Teni Pentochia Young Yuatan. And tell the Garchen and Asuche Lamsang Chilache, Teba lawyer tender mewa, Teba to tempo de to a Yichi Yabuche to a chi 1 nobo Chigi Jinran like Yoroko, Tina Yichi Chato Grace, 1 nobo Chigi Jinran. Chigi Jinran, follow the Dharma. Yeah. Then they chat to be a younger race, then the Tata, the some of you are the famous Yabundo, then it Nasu Trajak Union, Lopti Sigure. Then I take Nano in the Tata de Tajana Lola de Zidi Yoroko, Lopsi, remember 90 days you're to do out Lob Johnson and Yabo Yores.
So first, it's really excellent. It's great that you have taken the refuge vow and that you're really interested in like learning about the Dharma and studying, practicing the Dharma. And right now, actually, we have really a great opportunity to learn about the Dharma, because now all the teachings are given on the live stream on the internet, and a lot of Lamas always give teachings. So you should maybe try to join more of those teachings and really listen to the teachings, because if you listen to the teachings first, then they will help you really gain an understanding of the Dharma, to really kind of get the point of the Dharma. And then on the basis of such understanding, if we then engage in practice, the benefit will be even greater. So it is that in the beginning, we must have learning or hearing. We must hear the Dharma. And then on top of that, we reflect and we meditate. And if we do that on the basis of really understanding the crucial point of the Dharma, then the benefit is even greater, because then you will not quickly lose your faith again. Your faith will just remain. You will be more, you remain with greater stability. And so then, as such a person with a kind of a sharp capacity, you then really will continue to follow the Dharma. So first, the intention, the wish to even do that is really excellent. And I encourage you to listen to Dharma teachings on the internet. For example, what I'm doing is over the internet, we have this kind of curriculum of classes that go in stages. So if you would listen to that, for example, that would be excellent. Then any Lama, could you please explain some of the things in the Tanka image, especially those not described in the sadhana itself? So I'm assuming this Tsevang Tsimpa. Then Tsevang Tsimpa ki Tanka yo, tak diram di Druptab nala, then kashe Sebu Sungu yosa marava, then Tanka nala pe mambo yori, then Tanka nang Druptab nala member then so this Deshe nang.
Tanka Kalando. Jetande Tata Druptab Tan Tanka ni Munesina Druptab Suche Yuriba. Druptab Latan Tankanda Yuri, and Tanka Tan Druptab Song Yamara. And Druptab Nang de Yala Yago Yuri. Yena Yang Tender Samsan Son of Pusop Antesin, Yang Ziba Chetan. Mambo Doctor Son of Tongo Chan Rodua. They are sharing the Yomare. Donna the Tata going number thing, language, some things on our check. And what the legend, negative, some to tell this like Dina yeding around the same old social, there's like the death of the check. Ambuka Gudon Teterva. The tongue Gerana Gudon Mambu Yorota.
So now the way we practice the sadhana first is that we between the sadhana and the tankam, the sadhana is more important, not the tankam, because the sadhana was not composed by looking at the tankam, but the tanka was painted by looking at the sadhana. So the sadhana is the basis. So the sadhana is what we need to look at. And then, of course, sometimes we get a little bit uptight due to a lot of thinking in the mind. There's just too many things to think about, and then that develops into a lot of fixating, grasping thoughts, and that is also not recommendable. So it is best to just have kind of a basic appearance of the deity, to use that as like a kind of a basis of developing some stability, like a shamatha, a calm, abiding stability, so that there is something that then with stability appears within your mind. So that's really the first purpose, and there is of course many purposes for that visualization.
The tanka de Chayana, the Yimba Mambo Jendo, Tsusama Druptana Yoma, Tikol Sanu Dangumari. Druptana Karo is in its own, but Kojang, La Jangbari. So, you don't Koran Tipo?
Druptopnala.
Very much on the Soyomari.
Tila Changbamara.
The so Dangumari.
So, not just looking at this image of the tanka here, there's actually a lot of things in that tanka which are not in the sadhana, but actually don't think about those because there is maybe a lot of embellishment too in the tanka. For example, Tsewang Tsimpa is actually like a bear, a deity, as in he has no clothing. And then when you look at the tanka image, it looks like he's actually wearing robes. Not?
Marida. Tsewang Tsimpa Jang Jipa.
Sorry, not clothes.
Not the so the Tang Loju Tandra, you the Padron, Tandra, you the Barindua. The so yin the so. The Jelayon Jaris, you can't Druptamna, the so you marry.
Sorry, it's not just, so there's a similar word. So it's not naked, of course. It's only, so it's a sadhana, it's only Tsewang Tsimpa. And in the tanka, you can see there's all kinds of other figures in there. For example, there's Trinne Yongkyab, the previous Garchen Rinpoche, and so on, and others. And so these are all not in the sadhana. It's just Tsewang Tsimpa in the sadhana. Yeah. Any Lama again? When we visualize the hung at the navel, should it rotate or be stationary? Deva nala hung komtu, teniti hung di kogoreve, yana hung di korang takas negetok, tempo negetok.
Tsewang Tsimpa kapsuru marwa, enjo mari.
Chitang visualize hung deva la komtu.
Hung de deva la ta dego yorwa. Gojo majam. So the hung does not move, does not rotate, it stays stationary. And so, because when the hung moves, then the mind would also move. And then the reason why we visualize the hung is so that the mind does not move. So the hung actually becomes like a support for our focus. 조자
Horn dogo marwa.
거기 요
Diesen kujiga wo gyara. Samsam chero sam chungdo. So Khenpo Tenzin said that so it's just as they have said, but also so sometimes when you just use the Hung as a support for your focal object, so focusing single-pointedly, kind of the abiding quality, then mainly the Hung does not move, but so sometimes the aspect of clarity becomes important. For example, especially when the mind can loses clarity and you get sleepy, then in order to kind of regain some awareness and clarity, you can brighten up the Hung a bit, to make it more clear, more bright, and sometimes even make it move a bit, not in the sense of rotating, but in a sense of kind of a flickering, like a slight movement, and that can also help you to stay focused on the clarity aspect. Anything else? No?
Yeah.
Next, any Lama will we receive the Lung for the wrathful Guru text? Guru Tapogi Lung, also top talk. 다don't 참아서. 디 발라. So generally when Rinpoche gives the teaching, then together with the teaching actually you do receive the transmission as he reads, but then it seems that Rinpoche maybe he skipped over a few sections, and so that's true, right? Rinpoche didn't, yeah. So, sorry. It was not Rinpoche who skipped, it was you who skipped. So some of you skipped some of the sections, and so if you didn't get everything, then anyways, Christina asked me, and so after the whole event is over, then I'm going to give the reading transmission. Drupon. When I practice, there is an unmistakable clarity and vibrant energy of awareness. Thoughts arise and subside without attachment. However, there is a more subtle form of attachment. It's a feeling of a mood or a subtle emotion. I compare it to walking into a house where food was cooked days ago and the smell is still slightly present. It is difficult to work with these background feelings. Larger afflictive emotions are simpler. Do you have any advice? Thank you. Kom gyab du. Dini salcha yoraba. Dini chicken kan lagore. Wösaba ki nupatik energy da do.
Salcha koran le.
Salcha sabutabo. Salcha. Dini di kan lagore. Parchana ngiwa. Log na shi ba. Sobachi labki yoraba. Energy labki yore. Dini tikapla. Dini namtok Zimba meva ko doyang yong yoryam phan dogore tina yong yore. Deni yina yandela chakpa thabo chikdok. Thabo deni tik kharesena pe tik kanla gore mood na pe mood sena yang namtok member benanga pe tereng kibo dogna good mood ra. Deni nga tereng gumchen kha meva kibo mendok da mood chitwa. Tanga shira gumchen yamara takashi choba chitwa. Deni choba yapoda bodok. Deni tisa choba bodok. Benatin bodok. Nima khashe ki ngunla nima mambo ngunla khamba thila sama le sona. Deni nima khashe ngunla rawa. Deni nima khashe thina khamba tenala dro. Deni tarong de dima chungchung chikdwa sama digitima. Din nangshin da wore choba de. Tarong te chikdok ra. Ina chenpo de mare ina ti chungchung yinga dis kala khapo yore lakya nguna wena nyomong shuk chenpo den so dis dragere kaisena lamsang thongda dis lela bore ina chungchung dira dis lela bomen dok tara karachi gori
ta thenge ke yavo se he mas ina jitang de that's a gom jeb du nyam tin yung kyo sare nyam ze shine raina da gi de se metho se nyam yung gro wa ten de nyam so ma yen se la shno wa de nyam de shen jo ma res o te song do ze ten ni ne je da o da nam ta chung chung de wo xie na nam to khona khona wo xie nyam la chi tom na nam to chung chung de pa ne pa me la cha zi gi ro wa wo ma xie di song na ko nam to jian ya jun ro gro wa te yin na ta so zo de 전반 많이 도서 냠나 치고 쇼사리 뭐 신고야라 어ත네 전반 많이 냠나 치디 냠나 경황라 그 단지 데 남통지 단 짐바서 남통 어바 남통 충충충충충나 되라 아그뭐 신디 오나 티나 냠나 치디나 그 라지 단 네파미 바나 바찬다 그 배장다 춘다제 랍 충충충충 주코나나 바 문도 그러왔나기 된 린도 어ten주에서 저도 냠냐 티고 라마해나 냠냐 코나 디 짐바트 누파멜 샤노 사데 그 나도 제니 오제 시송네 된 짐바트 파치에 시당 로즈기로 디지말라데 대정도 허세 시바 유치한 저로 생포담마 통스제 노와 된다고다 시바 유치한 유치한 정도다나 그 많이 많이나 치고랬다 배장 포로즈 점수 난 주생께 강원나 주생티는 포로 포스나 추임 나오면 밥사요 말 소주 주티강 바운스 원년에 많이 나한테 된다 시작해서
when we meditate, then sometimes we, not as a result of practicing calm abiding, we sometimes experience various meditative appearances or experiences such as bliss or clarity or non-thought. And whatever it is, it's most important not to cling to those, not to follow those, and to just recognize all the subtle thoughts and graspings that arise. And recognizing them, then you continue the practice without pursuing them. Then if you're able to do that, then those smaller, more subtle thoughts, they will not actually affect you negatively. It's just when you do not really recognize them, and then they will basically control you. And so what's most important is to recognize them and then to remain without being distracted by them. So to continue the practice you're doing. And then the little thoughts won't cause so much harm. Then they just come and you recognize them and you continue the practice, and then just naturally, like ripples on water, like small ripples on water, they dissolve on their own again. So then you just let them come and go without them affecting you. But it's just if you once you start to grasp at them in any way, then of course it's possible that they will become bigger and bigger. And so the Rebbe had said, therefore, let go of whatever arises, and an ongoing state always continue the practice. And for example, it's just like when a ship is out in the ocean and there is a bird, a crow, then when it flies off, it can fly off, but then there's no other place to come back to than the ship, so eventually it will come back. So, and just like that, you continue in your practice without grasping. Then, any Lama, and Garchen Rinpoche mentioned the different qualities of a thigh bone trumpet. He mentioned a bone from a warrior who died during battle with a mind of hatred. What is the quality of such a bone, and what is its purpose? Rinpoche mentioned that the sound of the thigh bone can produce bliss upon hearing. How does the hateful warrior thigh bone sound produce bliss? Dala Trupa Gana, Shedang Munatigang Dongsong by Yore, Diniti Rupa, the Gang, the Kitchen of a Kanda Davodos, the Mixegi kupa kumsen khara yoristi kang somnon le chikti teni rumbache tiang song song teni chitang kanglen ra de la teni thupa chamgi dewa chembu nyam shi dewa nyam ke thupi yore teni ati khanla gore khongjo khanla gore shedang langkhan gi ra de ra thupa kyang kente tiki kangyan tina dewa ke gi rebe hai sena khorang shedang one rong송아 시송아 teni khorang kang phu teni nga dewa kiya yore
대체된 살아다 저 제기대 아주 팀들도 세게 제당 색 팀들도 낭 팀들 이어와 근데 또 소에는 색 팀들 그런 소라 따라 뽀뽀 못한 달로 총든다 강이나 대 그런 저 상상 열지당 뭐라 로아 인다 만다 달라도 소 제발도 봐봐 그런 소 따라데 틀려지 요로 देख कुरान सो देवा देख तब के कुरान सो के सांसम देख तब देखे तने अं कुरान सो ला की जतो बा देवा तर तो बा yang जे तारा ते तना मत सुपा जा तना चिदि yang tel tin कुरान सो के या ठले के सवाज दिया तेला नबा जी तो या तने कुरान सो ता जदां रोई या यो रंग रोई या कुंचो सी yung रो 공부 용된 준종 레동 hin진종 물론이 작은 종이야 다 뛰는 만도 요 말 삼아 되는데 다 소소 그 레당 그 왕의 뛰네 되는 소소가게 따라대 강랭도 소게 진도 소 뛰네 네 코란소 소소로 고야게 제 벤 공부 용된 그 종다고 있나 코란소 제다 띵바 종야 당 되니 인반지 비지가 탐지 중요하다 탐치도 양 틀려요. 어서 제발라 되는 제발 지그 요레스. 일단 다 갈린들라 게 고랑 것도네 대서 만다와 용송 게들 만다와 이겨서 되나 용송 남제들나 송도 투바장킨된 다 대서 그 갈린데는 되네 공부 용딩은 또 소탐 제로다 용고요라 Kurang sola tigle.
Kurang tigle.
Jangsam yora jangsam.
mix
Kurang tigle.
말이 다다티 저혈이 손에 그 제를 배주스 다다 강대다거나 다 소마까지 잡으려 되고 라초를 진리스 되는 거고 그 가르르스는 코랑 제다 초근 전라들라 잡고 그 마당 제 만초당 대단 저와 친구요. 되니 다다지 저혈이 손에 강대 깨공 코랑서로 제 인도 근데 제가
So, in terms of those substances and the sounds that they produce, so everything is interdependent, and there is an outer and an inner interdependence. And so, the outer interdependence is that, for example, one of the thigh bones was that of a young, a youthful girl, and what that represents also is the bodhicitta drop. The bindu drop, which as humans we have basically we surpass the gods even when it comes to that drop that we have. So that is very it is through the power of that drop, the bodhicitta drop, that bliss can be instilled in the minds of others. And so regarding this warrior who died in the battle, so each has, basically each being has a certain quality. So in general, we speak about 4 kinds of guests. There is the guests which are the 3 jewels, of the guests of refuge. And then there is the guests of the enlightened qualities, which are the protectors, like Mahakala. And then there is the guests of our compassion, which are the sentient beings of the 6 realms. And then there is the guests who are our karmic creditors, with whom we share a karmic debt. And so due to that there's certain activity that is to be performed, like a different kind of feeling arises when the gangling, the trumpet, is being played. So when it comes to the warrior, that one is related to the wrathful activities, and of those four kinds of guests, to the guests of enlightened qualities, the protectors. And so when one goes to war, then there's a certain kind of magnificence or kind of awesomeness that one wants to project. And so when that gangling, that trumpet, is being sounded, since it's related to the wrathful enlightened activities and to the guests, which are the protectors, then a certain like feeling of magnificence will arise, is instilled in the minds of those who hear it. Then any Lama, the deity stands on a lotus, moon, and sun. Which is their position or order? La Bema Nima dan dawa kan la shugu yorwa. Teni korim kanadok tambo Bema tani Nima tani dawa yana ta di somgi korim kanadok.
Tambo Bema tani Nima mar tani dawa tani Nima rida.
Shewa dan cho ko jiba chobu su jiba mang che la Nima cho la ma do yo mar ba. Ta shewa ba ji su la dawa yo Bema dan dawa. Ni cho la Nima de yo ba. De ren ban da wo sen na Bema dan dawa Nima sen. Sun ga yo yo na de si do.
So there's a difference when it comes to peaceful or wrathful deities. Most of the wrathful deities have also a sun. So of lotus, moon, and sun, they also have a sun. And the peaceful deities do not have a sun. They only have lotus and moon. So then it would be first lotus, then moon. And if it's a wrathful deity, then it's the same order as you wrote it. So lotus, moon, and then the sun. Tenzin. It is said in Dzogchen that everything is illusory and empty. Longchenpa said that primordial awareness cannot be said to be existent or non-existent. Is love also empty? Is love katak then?
Tate sewa te teni kada ke yuntin cha de yore. Kada de pena Nima ta yina teni sewa de te Nima te ko uzir ta ko ran yin ke chun chun. Teni koran kada koran ngo to ni nga ke tel sewa che go samya ke tanda ni sin zin be nin zin de yo ma ra. Koran ngo to ni yina koran da yuntin de yedin yene koran la yuntin de din de yore. Te dimba la tene koran yin ke tene yuntin de ke samse de ke 간다른 친 제 뉴스 디섬데 되니 까다 그런 거 뭐라 저쪽으로 용디 얘네 딘데 바레스 조반지 딘송공 그 공직는 대송을 란인난다 단제 용딘딘스 단데 배 저쪽으로 내서보차도 요래 된데 다른 있음이 벽에 유미 이미 탐지 간탈는데 번 다달 그거 그런 거라 되니 되게 진짜 뉴스인데 되니 란체성가 되와지
love it's a quality of this gadak, which is the original primordial purity, so the kata or this primordial purity is like the sun, and love is like the sun rays, the light. It just shines forth naturally. So that means that from the side, the perspective of primordial purity, it doesn't have a thought of I must give love, but it just happens naturally from a non-dual state. So the state of original purity is primordially endowed with those qualities of omniscience and love, loving compassion and power. It's a primordial quality of original or primordial purity. And Thubten Sumgön had said in the Gongchik that the equality, what is Rinchen namda tanda gyantin tisam. Kare.
Corona ta yene din de yine ya te yung din de zong de chobala tande zedwa. Mindre zam mai ba. Mindre zam yung ko yamar tande karesna drupani bo ta pa tar sum. Te tar um chani teni di yung din zong de chon. Timba pa tar ndo du ti chen de ni mo za.
So Thubten Sumgön said that so a natural quality of this complete impurity is that it is the result of separation, meaning that it is a separation of all the obscurations, the two kinds of obscurations. And it is being devoid of a separation of all extremes means that one is in a state of, it is a state of non-duality, and a state of non-duality is naturally endowed with all these qualities of omniscience, love, and of power. It's only 11:30. Daron Oddstok. Do you want to do the same order? Korm Chipa? Khenpo Samdup. It is possible to describe Buddha nature with concepts, and some teachers don't want to do that because they think it might cause wrong views. But then Garchen Rinpoche gave detailed instructions on the Buddha nature. So what's with that? How can we really speak about Buddha nature? Yeah, so Lama 송도 요마리디 고라 tik한 람도 요마리라 해서 랍토금은다 드니 tik다면다 람나 치치나 텔라데네 양 럭다 기시 그러면라 드니 양 베나 가르친 룸부시이나 드니 베십 십처럼 기바 마부 소냐 요라바 다디 가래이나 드니 대신 책본님 뭐 눈에 디콜라 기체시야 요르베 기체시 토끼도 직 요르베
레데 다다 켄포 텐진 송송 대야랑레데 랑제 남다 탄데 용텐덴스 다 대신이 뭐 대야랑로와 근데 다 책 응리스 유튜브 요 말에 공가서 진데 다 벨테는데 대신이 집은 힘보다야 띵난거 요르서 가서 뺀는 다와 때문에 값은 좀 먹어 근데 다와 돈난 거 요러 띵난 인체 근데 대 값을 가르치는 좀 몰로 마다와지 다와를 따고 그 요르서 다 빼때 그 돈도 하고 그 요러 양까지 그 뺄 책들 삼노 땅에 되는 촌도 그 요러 근데 연장 지당세나 대신 시빈 힘보다 더 대신 힘보다 롭종 마제원 해나 아주 대 중조 그 시랍 레벨 제선의 다오당 오만족바 자와 시랍 든들 다오제 롭종 낭 톰나 대그 근데 대신 힘볼라야 대 내가 너도 하고 두고 요래 그래서 그 동반이 라야 대 강연 매조 든들 강연 많이 받지로와 그 대신 힘볼라야 동대와 송그 요르 동대와 되니 고유 가르세는 우사와랑지 우사와 강인 받더니 동대와 되니 이열매 받지다 든들다오지 책 랍당 그 돈이 라용데 든들제 샘나다 무종양 다오지 차가 요르고 다 든들다오지 맨도 되네 대신 힘볼라야도 지당니 나랑서 다다 타마르 시바 대야랑 레이송그 요르 대응 마제나 시바 레이스 대응 센소나 타마르 시바 대야랑 그 랑진데 대신 힘볼 레이송그 요르
And so it's just as Khenpo Tenzin had just said that quote by Jigten Sumgyen, that the quality of this natural complete purity is it is the result of separation. And so it is, Buddha nature is something that cannot be expressed by words. It's something that can be indicated, kind of illustrated by means of examples. For example, it's like when you're pointing at the moon with your finger. So what you're pointing at is the moon. So therefore what you need to look at is the moon and not the finger. So this is how it is with Buddha nature. You should think about the meaning and not just the illustration, because if we get caught up in all these various concepts, then we will become confused. So Buddha nature is inexpressible, but it is good to have an indication to understand its meaning, for example, by learning about it in the chapter on the perfection of wisdom in the Bodhicharya Vatara, or in the, entering the middle way, the root of, within the middle way, then the root of wisdom, the Mula Madhyamaka Karika. And so then, based on that, you can learn about the nature of Buddha nature. Then you know what it, you have an indication of what it is. So for example, that it is not just, it is empty, but it's not just nothingness. So Buddha nature is empty, but also it has a quality, a nature of luminosity. And emptiness and luminosity are indivisible. So based on such words, the mind can identify, kind of recognize what it is. And so then when you recognize it, you know that this is what it is. So actually Buddha nature is just our the ordinary consciousness, the ordinary awareness. It is just that if we do not recognize it, then it is like a dualistic awareness or consciousness. And if you recognize it, then it is just actually this awareness, but you have recognized Buddha nature. Then, next, Kape Lama. I would like to read more on the Tsewang Tsimpa teachings and Dzogchen according to the Yangzab Dharma. Is there a text or commentary that I could get? Ko Tsewang Tsimpa deni Dzogchen Yangzab kola tezam lobchung chendiyo. Antin tela yige tagi yoreve teplo yatawa.
Yangzab tepse yale uyo mhichitanda Yangzab senata jachembo ndawa. Yangzab chukala pe rai mandawa mambo yore. Tani ta la rambanda we sin roguna Yangzab la lan chachang sena yongo yore. Mondo ni zonde mondo bonga ta. Tani ko tsaksam lebzang nisile nimpa yaya ta. Tani ti jila zorang ko la te. Zoram yishikunzo sijutel pe Chechu tan Tugasen, Jakin Yabanova. Then the Sen Lamrama Chatsan, Roya, Yoda Yori. Kake Eric Jorsarva. The Cardio Mati Jumi.
So I'm not so sure now about actual texts, like books on the Yangzab, but the Yangzab in general is a very vast cycle of Dharma teachings, and it also is all-inclusive when it comes to the path, the levels of the path. So the entire path is complete within the Yangzab, starting with the preliminary practices, the 500,000 accumulations, which are 500, right, in the Yangzab. And then there is the deity practice, which is the 3 roots, where you complete mantra recitations, and then you come to the completion stage practice, which is the complete perfection of primordial wisdom, and then you practice the tekchu, which is the direct cutting, and then the togal, which is the direct crossing or leaping over. So all the levels of the path are included within the Yangsab, and there are, as Drupon had said, there are a few of those texts, but we don't know which ones. But a few texts were translated by a translator called Eric. Then Drupon. Garchen Rinpoche quoted Milarepa, who said that the greatest or the ultimate demons are your own thoughts. But when you recognize them, they actually become an enhancement to your meditation practice. How do thoughts become an enhancement to meditation once they're recognized?
다들이 저도 말하래 봤다. 이제 투야 정도가. 그래서 그런 냠낭한테 용기도 장거리시 저도 냠낭한테 충격. 이나 진짜 저서 그 냠수 가시도 내저다 냠량 가신다. 대 충격. 다저 삼상 자ක් 냠낭한테 충격. 이나한테 세링칭아 저서 강라. 공한테 냠수나 혀. 또 냠수랑네 다다 가서 공시 다 주종종만 해서 在구혼도 다른 마음으로 그래. 다외그 남지 지리도 그 처마서 시와샤와티 세린칭 같아서 지디. 마르에케 공동 지금 남토레서 송송슬라도. 저는 젠지 차즈모데 차즈모 말아래 봐 충주동도. 제가 메시 추랑을 요레스. 다른 요레스 마보스 라도샤테 말아래 배 추고 뭐부터 빼야고도. 그게 나만 mam보된 약간 mam보 뉴이스이나 추랑 뭐부터 너무 생각고 마서 리키트 너무 저저 차즈모 딱고 말아래 봐 동바인 봐. 남토 충주가 동바인 하고도 봐. 그래. 남토 마음선 제 마음으로도 남토 대장이 말어봐 그 소소 냠내치 톰네 제 장이 매바 상도도
So when the different demons, these various apparitions manifested before Milarepa, so they were visions or apparitions also that came to test the stability and kind of level of practice of the yogi. For example, there were the 5 Tsering sisters who came and challenged Milarepa in various ways and appeared in different ways. Sometimes they would increase and appear in various forms. And so basically by sustaining the view, then finally those 5 Tsering sisters were pacified. And it was first that Marpa had told him that your greatest demon are your thoughts. And also this one time, there was this kind of demoness, Daxingmo, who appeared to Milarepa. And so he tried to oppose her first. And then she said that you think you can get rid of me, but it's all inside of yourself. So even if you get rid of me, there is many more to come. So in response to that, Milarepa said, that's the best advice I've ever gotten. I have encountered many gurus and received a lot of great instructions, but that's the best piece advice yet. So based on that, he realized that the thoughts are actually empty. It is just his own thoughts. And therefore, if you have a lot of thoughts, then there will also be a lot of demons. And if you're able to sustain your practice without clinging to the thoughts, then also the demons will disappear. Also, when in the context of the story of the 5 Tsering sisters, so then Milarepa said that when you realize the nature of those hindrances, when you don't realize them, then they are demons, like maras. But when you realize them, what they are, then actually they become protectors, like Dharma protectors. And actually the 5 Tsering sisters they actually did become the protectresses of his dharma.
남도 때 본도 인다면데 다라랑 그 냠내시 달라라 레도다라 남도 왕도 효소는 되니 코테 파체리다 데 남도 때 나랑 그저 하고와서는 디왕도 마 효와서는 되니 대디 본도 차더라 남도 조르더라 조르때 되니 코 곰데야 제란로 온가더라 베나 르자자면 베코 챌린징도 마부 고도와 디나이 들어고 알린다라
And so whether or not the thoughts become an enhancement to your practice depends on the way you practice. So of course, if you keep falling under the power of these thoughts, then obstacles can still arise. But if you do not allow yourself to be controlled by them, you just recognize them, then they can become an enhancement to the practice, because then they become liberated. And by liberating them, your practice improves. For example, it's like when you're training in some kind of sport, exercise. So in order to get better at it, you need some challenge. You need to challenge yourself. And so by training yourself, by challenging yourself, you're actually developing the skill. Then Drupon. Again, Garchen Rinpoche mentioned that when you eat something and think that would taste good, you can use your awareness to neutralize the karmic impact of that desire. Is it really that as simple as just noticing desire, or are there more steps involved? Kona hakona mosentumna teni ko meba chagres teni pena di chapa gileng empati reba teni ko tando gres tini le labo reves kai kowa chamda oda nga chapa chiki son cham di matok shen kayang go gemen do e
da se tenru chinan chire mala re bezu nga renga sa hin ku sang sa dong song gar he be dama yo song do yan so ari sam sam da na re kyo yan dong ba 고다 가이나 서로 정도 당화요 세밀라를 좀 초아서 차시나다 나비 초초자 이제 라와스 인디 되고 무엇이서 동바이나데 좋은도 효지로 고양대 착과도 미나 양대 대 요말 다다 일년 차다 안
배낭 nga mo kaota
너도
nga 심보레 삼게도
너도
앞에 심보도 ini nga shimbore sambaderwa
제제
ha kogetok
너도
라 nga nga ta shimbore nga shempa gi에서 하라 kogerwa
제제
이나야 다롱가 사고로
신바 코나 라지 마로
ini di ha koba sam게 메바로
또 신바데 라지 마로
ha koba sam 메바로 그래서 거도 ini
어떠시 로봇 지송야들이 가르스나 그 신바한테 신바 인방 뭐시네 신바 공양 라지 좋아하면 어디 신자情况통도
진짜 그런
공항 뭐 좋아하면 해야 공오시다 라지 마로 바이나 하고 그러 지난다 생각 못해 산디나 생각 못해 대사는 건 못해 내려도 돼요 뭐 봐. 그거라지 마로 봐. 공오시서 초르스 된 사리 어다 제트 남에 레레 다 지난 차스 코로나 들어와래 레레 테 요아 때로베 나로라 남에 mention 先别清晰的先把听清楚清楚先把他明了先把就行나로 봤어 어떤 정 사리다 양错进了这边可是他这光头明了然后就错可能他让他自己呢这怎么错可能怎么这个是没来别的怎么办
So Miller Rebbe also said that so then the way like a yogin eats is that all eating and drinking becomes a feast offering, a Gana Chakra feast offering. And Miller Rebbe also spoke about the natural liberation of the 6 sense consciousnesses. And he gave instructions on that. So in brief, when whatever is perceived with the 6 sense consciousnesses is empty of self-nature. So when this thought of this is delicious arises, then the attachment itself So not just the thought, but the attachment itself, and you look at its essence, it does not inherently exist. When you really try to find this attachment, it's not really there. So this idea of like, I like something sweet, the sweetness that I like, it cannot be found anywhere. It lacks any true existence. The taste itself of sweetness doesn't really exist. So it's just our perception of it. And that perception lacks inherent existence. The perception is unreal. Tilopa said to Naropa, it's not the appearances that tie you down, it's your clinging attachment to them that ties you down. So therefore, you should cut through clinging attachment. So that's ideal, but if you can't do that, you can also visualize yourself as the deity and think that what you're eating becomes a Gana Chakra feast offering. Then any Lama. I live with chronic health issues and pain. This requires me to spend a lot of time managing my health. I spend much of the day doing self-care activities. I wonder about the karmic impact of spending all this time on myself. I try to focus less on myself. For example, when I feel better, I can practice, so there's a less attached motivation in that. And sometimes I wish that others with the same problems could have the treatments that I receive. What else could I do to reduce the karmic impact of these self-centered but necessary activities? Thubten de la subscription ramenda di main salo la sopa de di Thubten mambutin zone ro yore Nima ninkang tene ya samsang di le khanda ina samotang gi yo tan Nima ninkang ngarang sam gi yora ngarang gi Thubten ngarang gi supo ngarang nachate tene samsang ngati ha khu yo tene ngata nyamren chigo samsang tene pena nga kunong dis yo batang tang soso gi supo la dis chapa nungdo tang tene samsang la ong ngan rabo mi mambo nachati rabo yores teni koranso nachati rava shows teni ngatina menla kyagi yos yina yanchitang ta rangjo le mambo sando go yosore tela tene khanda na yang haisa tutse mambo tela zondo go yore yina yang tapshi yo ma yang ma che rangche re tendabo ta khashi gores ti mempa ta kulan diskyo charaba yina ti mempa kharachi
다데 저단 더 근롱 코단도 야보도 근롱 대야랑 요아이나 되네 다다 모랑게 단닝 쇼가니 따곤다 파르카레나고 준드치 투팅 조복락직 삼노치 땅고 요러 그 지지도 근홍도 자가 요러 근홍도 다 야보지 요아이나 되네 진된 그 링아 그 근홍도 쇼가 땅아서 야보지 삼노 땅와 예너와 되네 진데 링아 그 레드서 망치지 가르치는 치단 템바지 차트고 요러 근홍도 소체로와 다다 모랑 그 나사 모랑이나 코랑이나 간다 간다 나사 가라 요아이나 다데 나치 가르치는 뭐 예는 요아데 사마는 내리 동아 나사 요 동아 요한다 탐제 차비 용쇼 삼야 된 근홍코 ene yunde zobon thoden yabo samno tanya che yorwa te ge chimbo chaga yorko tanni se malong wa song yor tanni se malong wa la de ne yang chi jipo samno tane zobon thoden ma zewa yena de ke yomare ya zobo jipo thoden koram yor te kona samno ta tel cha chin shin ne ne yang chi do ya ge samno che ne ma ta wa yena te an de ke yoman tanni se malong wa che thone te ne le ka garzen thoden an yabo yores 다데 송도 망치지 로봇체기 진데 가르치는 데일리 그 되는 니마 따पर 가서티 제 내가 가르쳐와야 나 치단 팀바지 차토야 마모 깔럼 나도 그래서 양신이는 야보도
모란테 냠레 리데샤 모란모란레 이치시진 초데샤 데 냠레지 텔레로스 티바 yin 상고서 마다라 yene patam che ke cha wong hyo sam de da Today, Senji Sijida. Setset Soji Paron Tapis are on me some Yoruba. The Gonlong in Jua Tangi, Koran Setset Yoal and Jua, Tapi Yoris on Yoruba. That Yimba, Yali, Homadas, and Sendra Shirago Samadara.
So Samdup said that. So actually, it's really excellent that you already are really changing your motivation a bit already. And for example, when you're worried that from morning till late, all day long, I'm only thinking about my health, and so you already have awareness of that, and you have changed this motivation. You think about others who also experience that problem. And so that's actually a very important. So especially in the morning when you wake up, to have a good motivation, because then what you do with the body and speech throughout the day also becomes a virtuous activity. Because it's really the prayer that is important, not that you think other people also have health problems like myself, so may they get better, and so on. So that is really excellent. But then on the other hand, also you have to also think, of course, about your own health. But what's important is that you do not fall into either of the two extremes. So you cannot only think about Dharma practice and completely neglect your body, your health. That's not good. But on the other hand, you also shouldn't overly pamper your body and be so attached to it and not practice any Dharma at all. So that's also not good. We shouldn't fall into both extremes. And so, so Garchen Rinpoche actually gave a lot of instructions on how we implement that into our daily practice, as our daily activities in whatever we do. And then in whatever we do, we are really able to practice the Dharma. So it would be good maybe to listen to some of those instructions by Garchen Rinpoche. And so then I think Gabe Lama then said that, and also Drupon in between. So most important is that you actually are already practicing, because you have this awareness and trust in the Dharma, and you don't want to be distracted, and you think about others, and you want them to get better. And actually that is the practice, actually, because it's also said that aside from practicing virtue in whatever you do, there is no other perfection of method or skillful means than that. And so that is really related to our general state of mind, or a motivation. That really determines whether or not we practice the Dharma. And if it is a good motivation, then anything you do, really anything at all, can become Dharma practice. So then there is no need to really worry about that you're not doing any other practices. And also when you are sick, then you should also rejoice in that, because the sickness, actually, through the sickness, you are purifying negative karma. Also, Thubten Sumgön had said that. And then when somebody else is sick, then you should feel compassion. So why is it that you should rejoice in your own sickness? It's because you are purifying negative karma by being sick. So if you think in this way, then actually it also will have a beneficial effect on your health. You might get better, and also in your mind you will feel more happy. In Khenpo Tenzin. I'm from South Korea, and I have a question about the mandala offering practice. Am I supposed to face to the west when I'm doing the mandala offering? Is west toward me as the practitioner? How do the directions work with the practice? South Korea, right? They call Mandal Yamasiki, sorry. Then he Mandal Putu, then he also cut in Nupsola Tago, Nupso. Then he Nupsa Tagona, then he Nupsa Kawado, Pena, Pena Nupsoking, Pena Tingang Nupso, Pad, Sugar, Yana Nupsoking Ala Swatagari. Tortina so connect with this mentality.
This so get the Hello Nabzans in a lock pie uncle Yorkshire uncle Yomarva. So you can not show you in the Serhi Kayomar Pa lock pata no Yorba. The Tochi that there in there show years and yet so Tochi the Maranso so rank.
Nima shasatel shazolez, Nima nopsatel nobzolez.
So Kubuka, so rank here so chadura.
Injury. So shari shar. Tender Mare, Meda Piro, Meda Ju Zonroa, de Shari, and the Slori. Really, Shartiarani, Meda Zondera, Meda the Charang Sharsori. Your left side is south, your facing is north, your right side is the east. So like that.
So basically you're facing it's east, and so it's not that so in terms of the four directions, so the west does not like it's hard to say like the west faces toward me, like basically directions, they don't face toward you, but you face toward the directions, and so but then when you offer the mandala, no matter which directions you actually face, so the part of the mandala that is closest to you on the round part, that's always east. And that must always be east, and no matter which direction your body is. And so then, what is it? The left side, what is it?
Left side is south.
Is south. Then in front is then the right side is north, and then opposite is west. Yeah. And then any Lama. If I want to avoid creating new karma, how do I behave when facing a difficult situation? Specifically, when should I endure the difficulties, and when should I intentionally try to cut through them and end them? In other words, when should I take control, and when should I just abide with the difficulty? Antini, tal leng banga Samdup me, yinan samsan la be ka kala mambo chigido. Tini samsan la kale ngana suba kongo yore. Tini ya samsan la kanga tiang tama takala yogore, tani dogore ram. Tanga di chigi mes ta wala kora samsan la. Tini takati khanda sa kogore. Tanga suba komna kasare khanda ha kogore. Tanga di unati legati male tik payuksho ta le tuksa mare ta ti yeva khanda ha kogore.
The Tenshi Goro, Tenshi Ting do. Tenshi Chita Yaki Yanako Junjung Lobjong Sitomatini, Tenshi Tisukola Yapo Yore, Zogomsia, the Tenshi Korta. That Dick Si Lan Dodoji Tenya Yomariko, Lobjong Si, there's some Yamin Angoroko. And the Tenshi Junjo to the Lobjong Sen Yapo Yoro.
So mainly, you know what to do when you have practiced mindfulness, and so to understand mindfulness, actually, it's maybe good to study the Bodhicharya Vatara. There's also this chapter on patience, and there's a lot about mindfulness. So there's not just this one thing that is like the answer to that, but it all depends on your own level of practice, and mindfulness is most important here, and so therefore, to learn about that, it would be good to study the Bodhicharya Vatara. Then any Lama. If one does not have the means of offering materials for Gana Chakra, such as Dorma, can the offerings be visualized? Then talk dangona, then talk the damenda mena, then talk the Yigi Gomna Chogre. Yana Tokte. Yes.
Missing Jordan. Yona Yogora missing Joachi.
Yona Telechazo Lachu Town, Senana, we drove into the tender. There's 20 men at the Malada Palakaya on my
So in general, yes, offerings can be visualized, but also it depends. If you have substances, offering materials, and you just don't want to let go of them, you're stingy. Then then it's not okay to just say, oh, I don't want to let go of that. I just do some visualization. So that's not okay. But if you really have nothing, like Milarepa, for example, then Milarepa always performed these Gana Chakra feast offerings. Gapelama, please tell me the regular sadhana to use for daily practice after this event. Is it different from morning or evening? Tanda da jevang jema bolengira. Da gyundun yamnen sekona. Tini di propta dirve. Tini pena shoke dan konda yamnen chikpa dawe. Propta ige chikpa dawe.
Dupta teri nga sunga gon namje nyamle si tiaran ri bo chik songtira. Duptam do diteri. Nam nga do tan sedo dupta lo ya chikpa re. Ko pe thong thong ro. Ina cho de tön chamal ja go mare. So de yang che tu chu mixan do. Samla de na che cham sa. Ta na ma do. Ti baro de na wang jin do ga de go mare. De jo yo mi shi. De jo jo mare.
Ini cham tok member shemba chama dengora. So the text to be practiced for this event is just a sadhana that Rinpoche is teaching on, and it's the same text that you would use in the morning or in the evening, and that's the practice that we do every day at Garm Monastery, so that's used as a daily practice. And so the same text in the morning and evening, and so it's a very short text, it won't take too long. And however, there's a feast offering, a Gana Chakra in there, and you don't necessarily have to do that in every session. You can do that on special occasions, or sometimes if you're doing a retreat, for example. But the rest of the text you can recite, but it's anyways very short. Then, about Tenzin. So you taught on this a few days ago. And can you explain more about the Vijaya deities? What does this group of deities indicate? Like Avalokiteshvara, Achala, Mahabala, Vajrapani, etc. Nima Kaisheng la Kerang, the Namgerman Kola Gachanaimba, the need the La Damanda Yoraba, Bena, Jin Rezik,
Troy.
The Top Toboche, the Ne
Meo.
Meoa, the Nisana Dorje, the Nitenso Kola Kashe, he's so Tanda Kararis, the Ne, he's a treasure now.
That Jedre Kantar Namjama rank the Chilean of the Sir Garansola Sipo with Dium Pachanre. Then the Tara Ninjake Tony Tene that Chalezo Nangwade, then Ginezet Chaye do you the Badirwa Chaye Chola. Yes, all. Then you sola Chador you the Bade, Matene Yang, Kana Kandorkatone, Trabuk, this Ndorguatela, meaning in Chandorjet Yorwa. Then it take a tro yet a Halo Nopsang Cho Yellow Yorete, tro yet a Kandar Namjamak, Yuntin the Hego, Garrison, Yuntin Garrison, do yellow number Java, Remji Tarapumbu do Pumborangi Mother, but Lazo Bartin, Pumbu do le Jarsoma. Then a new Mumba Drapapama Latine, new Mumba du Pansoma. Then Tarati Then Naming Lasoba, the Sokaton, Kandar Namto Yonstoba Travichani, then it are live do. Then it Jiwatan Gaban Tamjimi into Dini, Huasaya Yomarawa, Huaseva, Telejarandu, then in Chibdak do the Javas, do Yada Java, Pa Jarsona, Namjama Koranka Yuntin Chadayuri. Then in Aranso Tela Deba Tang, Ichi, then Jetko. Susoke ngan indu gomde sedwa gomgo yore dego yore kan ndu semni ji tana je paina tin namja ma ke te ke yuntin so ngarang so la chum phune teni delten susoke toni chendala je jinga parchela so ba tan sertba te jiwa samala teni ta dewa jin la so ba ta bu hin kan la je thoba teni nyamda to ba la so ba tam je ya gong ne phwa chama teni yong ko yore Pa Duswana Namjama Korank Yunti Chaduri.
So these different deities around Namgyalma, Ushnisha Vijaya are like they are like a ready manifestation of her various enlightened activities that then manifest, like materialize. So for example, because she has great compassion, on her right side appears Avalokiteshvara Chinrizik, and on her left side appears Vajrapani. Sometimes it is necessary to subjugate, to tame beings through various means, sometimes through wrathful means, and so therefore there is a wrathful activity. And then in the four directions are the four wrathful deities. And so they all express a quality of Namgyalma herself. And so mainly it is the defeat of the four Maras. So for example, having conquered the Mara of the aggregates, so having realized that the aggregates lack inherent existence, one conquers the Mara of the aggregates, and then having removed all afflictive emotions, one conquers the Mara of the afflictions, and having eliminated the thoughts of distraction, one conquers the Mara of the gods, and then having realized that the mind transcends birth and death, and therefore there is no death, one conquers the Mara of the Lord of Death. And so these are qualities that represent such transcendence, having conquered these four Maras. And then if we develop faith and trust, and then engage in this practice, then these qualities also arise within us. So the practice is called a meditation and recitation. So we need to verbally recite and also mentally visualize. And then if you practice in this way, then Namgyalma kind of bestows her qualities upon us. And then even in this lifetime, one may be able to dispel various obstacles and unfavorable conditions and so forth. And also for future lifetimes, one may take birth in pure lands such as Deva Chen, and then gradually one's experience and one's realizations will increase. So these are all the qualities of Nam Gyalma which then arise within us. Then Drupon. And by uttering hung 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 with the sound coming from the navel, I feel painful in the area. Is this correct practice? What should I do? Nga hung 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 tengura. Tini ti devane tengura. Ti devane kana shukti tat devane yongorava. Tene ina nga tine sete tini devala pen nagitok. Nga tsagigito. Tini karaji. Tian tishina nga norsong. Nga nyamlen sete norsong. Ti karaji gori norsonge.
Deva tena shung show ma shla ma ji mi pa zo chi. Ti chinan da shoji. Show di long long de yura ta shung ga chinan da shung de bo mi na. Mi pa zo chin de shoji.
If it's painful in that area, then you shouldn't apply too much force. Then maybe you should focus mainly just on the visualization. Almost finished. Almost finished. Kain sena jutsu samadhi jutsu chuni dan segari chuni. Taron so divani to tene tsasang. Wait a minute. You are chick dog. One second. I'm getting confused. Are we already finished? Or the rest is like. Is this more private than the rest? So that's it then, right? And no need those, right? Okay, so then that's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very nice questions.
Thank you
Rejoice.
to all of the Lamas and Khenpos for answering everyone's questions. And I just have two quick announcements. We will be doing the Sewang Sempa practice on tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. So please join us for that practice. And one correction to the announcement that was made earlier about the 108 books on Garchen Rinpoche's life story that are being offered. Please do not send an email to Garchen Institute inquiring about those books. You'll need to email the author, Susu, directly, and all of that information for how to contact her is on our homepage now. So please reference that and just know we will not be answering any of the 200 emails that we've gotten in the last hour about the books. Thank you so much, everyone. And we'll see you this afternoon for Lama Bunima's sharing his stories of Guru devotion for Garchen Rinpoche at 3:30. Thank you.